Yeah, so welcome, Cindy. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sure all of you are fairly familiar with Cindy and her poetry. I got to have the distinct honor of working with her last year, holding space, and a group of incredible women, did a what did we wind up calling it, Cindy? It was more than just a reading of
A concert reading.
a
Oh
concert
my
reading,
goodness.
concert reading, and
Sounds great.
it was transformational. My daughter was there. She's 20 years old, and she thought it was the most important piece of art that she had ever witnessed, and
Oh,
that
wow.
is a powerful thing. To hear that from her. She calls Cindy a genius, and she's hoping that this
I agree. I agree.
work can be seen, around the whole world, and I agree.
Yeah.
And so, without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Cindy Williams Gutiérrez.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's such a joy to be with all of you this afternoon. Thank you for the gift of your presence. And thank you, Tracy, for inviting me to read here in the glorious Metal Valley. Even if we're not sharing physical space, we're all sharing the beautiful space, most of us, of the valley. So this reading is inspired by a recent event hosted by Hugo House of Seattle. I had the pleasure of reading with Washington Poet Laureate Claudia Castro Luna and Redmond Poet Laureate Raul Sanchez and translator and poet Carolyn Wright. And it was Carolyn who named our reading at that time, Tracing the Maps. And so I borrowed from her, so I'm grateful to her, to call today's reading Tracing the Map of Injustice. We are at such a pivotal moment in the national conversation, in this moment of reckoning with racial injustice. So I'm going to read a few new poems, as well as poems from my recent collection, Inlay with Nacre, The Names of Forgotten Women. I'm going to begin with a celebratory poem, a poem written in the voice of the Black Madonna. The Black Madonna is a statue or painting of the Virgin Mary with dark skin. This Catholic feminine deity is worshipped in many parts of the world, especially much of Latin America and Europe, but I learned recently also parts of Africa and Asia. So as we trace the maps of the Americas, we'll begin in Mexico City with this poem. Message from the Black Madonna to the first mothers. Some say I turned black from decay, of gold and azure pigments leaking lead. Others credit centuries of grime, of devotees' votive candle smoke. I say, Indigene, I belong to your kind. I am Our Lady of Africa in Algiers, Manila's Nuestra Señora de Guía, La Guadalupana in Mexico City. I am the brown, the black of the earth. I am the first to give birth, to nurse. My skin is the primordial soil. I open my dark palms to feed your kin. I place one word on your native tongue. Say, Malud, Napanganak, Nacer. From Africa to Mexico, you are first born, born beyond nations, born to the land. And the word born in Arabic is Malud. In Tagalog, one of the dialects of the Philippines, Napanganak. And in Spanish, of course, Nacer. Let's stay in Mexico and journey about 80 miles southeast to Puebla. This poem is a persona poem written in the voice of Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, a 17th century colonial Mexican poet nun. She is arguably one of the greatest literary minds of the Americas and the first feminist. She is so important to Hispanophone literature that there are Mexican scholars who are called Sor Juanistas. They specialize in the literature of Sor Juana. I guess that would be like Virginia Woolfists, something like that. Her biography, The Traps of Faith, was written by none other than Nobel Prize-winning author Octavio Paz. Sor Juana wrote religious plays, erotic poems, and a feminist manifesto, which was thinly veiled as a direct address to her nemesis, the Bishop of Puebla. The bishop determined to bring her down, and he did. He enlisted the support of her confessor, and together they forced her to renounce her writing, to give up her thousands of books, to give up her hundreds of musical and astronomical instruments, to renounce and abandon her life of the mind, and to begin to tend the sick. She died in her early 40s and left for us a thin volume of poems. One of her famous poems is called Primero Sueño, which can be translated either as first dream or first I dream. And in this poem, I dream, in her voice, that after she abjures, she writes a final note to her nemesis. A note Sor Juana dreams of sending to the Bishop of Puebla. There is an epigraph in her voice. These are her words. So in my case, it is not seemly that I be viewed as feminine, as I will never be a woman who may as woman serve a man. Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, 1648 to 1695. First, I dream, then I write, between the lines for fools to abide by patriarchy's rules. Make no mistake, I incite the most reverenced tongue to spite. Then I recant, forswear, no nun's desire will lay bare in noble works of art. Ban or burn my books, I take heart. To confess your envy is my prayer. That form is a form she used quite a bit. Much easier to do in a Romance language. It's called a décima, and it is a Spanish Baroque form of poetry. It's 10 octosyllabic lines with a very specific rhyme scheme that you probably could hear. And it's the rhyme scheme that makes it a lot easier in a Romance language. Now let's head north to the border town of Brownsville, Texas, which is where I was born and raised. I left Brownsville when I went to college, and I visited every year, several times a year. And a few years after I left for college, I started noticing this strange and glorious phenomenon. You could set your watch by the arrival of flocks of green parrots. At 6:30 every evening, these green parrots arrived in my parents' backyard and perched on grapefruit and kumquat and orange trees, on the peach and the papaya trees. And they, after a few seconds, a few moments, they moved to the front yard and perched on the ash and the mesquite and the telephone poles. And a few moments later, they moved further through the neighborhood, making their way north. And what happened to Brownsville after I left is that actually it became an international destination for birding. There's a beautiful sanctuary called Sable Palms, and you can see these colorful parrots in the trees and in the sky and on the bank, right by the Rio Grande River. You can see the green Border Patrol trucks. Child separation. There's an epigraph. In Spanish, hope, the word hope begins with the word wait. Espera is the word for wait. It's inside of the word esperanza, which is the word for hope. Wait. I don't know where they're taking you, Mama. There's no familia here, Papa. No one, nadie, to keep us safe. Every step takes you más lejos from me. Save me from the place detaining esperanza. Sing like we're birds in el cielo, migrating home. That poem is an acrostic. When you read it down, it spells the word witness. I'll read it one more time so that you can hear that. Wait, I don't know where they're taking you, Mama. There's no familia here, Papa. No one, nadie, to keep us safe. Every step takes you más lejos from me. Save me from the place detaining esperanza. Sing like we're birds in el cielo, migrating home. There's a song, a Mexican song that's very famous, Cielito Lindo, and the chorus goes, sing, don't cry, because singing makes our hearts light. It makes us happy. So that reference to cielo not only means the sky, right, celestial, it also refers to that song. Let's stay near the border and head west to Phoenix. This poem is inspired by an editorial written by New York Times journalist Nicholas Kristof. The epigraph is from his article dated January 30th, 2011. And the form is an Italian form. It's a terza rima. So it's a poem of 3-line stanzas with a braided rhyme, because the poem is about a trinity. So you'll hear this braided rhyme in 3-line stanzas. Editorial on the Trinity. Mother, sister, bishop. This is the epigraph. Just days before Christmas, Bishop Thomas Olmsted stripped St. Joseph's Hospital of its affiliation with the Roman Catholic Diocese. Nicholas Kristof, New York Times. Margaret McBride has never been a bride. No blushing cheek, attired in white or black. A nun, the church avows, must marry Christ, obey his laws. This nun is under attack for saving a woman from facing certain death. The bishop claims her sin is turning her back on Mother Church and a fetus of a waxing breath in a waning womb. Sister McBride approved the abortion, put a woman above the rest. A mother saved, a family spared. The proof, 4 small lives redeemed from grief. For these good works, the sister was reproved. Bishop Olmsted proclaimed her choice, in brief, worthy of excommunication. The Phoenix Hospital dared to hold a different belief. Unheralded, the bishop issued the edict to excommunicate the infidel, the hospital, just days before the merry birth of Jesus. In this season for misers, for the prodigal, in this infirmary for the ill and the dying, on Christmas there will ring no bells or gospel, only the knelling of conscience, bona fide. Now let's head east to Mississippi, to Puerto Rico, and across this country of 50 states, which was once the land of over 600 nations. Eugenics rant. A feeble-minded taxonomy for females in the early 20th century spelled compulsory sterility. And for Native American women in the 60s, feeble equaled unmarried pregnancy, or a white coat's verdict of promiscuity. And for 60% of Black women in Sunflower County, victims of Mississippi appendectomies, and 1/3 of Puerto Ricanas in our pulsing territory of bomba dances due to their hyper-fertility and their booming poverty, the US polity decreed these ladies of the South and Commonwealth fail to see their burden on society's health and must tender their tubes or wombs as the toll, as the means to minority birth control. But if they were to rise to a higher station, and if they had a voice in this chosen nation, they would certainly vote for sterilization. The next poem is new. I wrote it in response to our current national reckoning with racial injustice. Trace the map across Texas, Kentucky, Illinois, New York, Minnesota, California, Missouri, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Ohio, and more. The poem is another acrostic. If you read the first letter in each line vertically, it spells the words Black Lives Matter. The poem is called How Many? Breonna Taylor, 8 bullets in bed. Botham Jean, 2 bullets in his apartment eating ice cream and watching TV. Laquan McDonald, 16 bullets on the street, walking away. Amadou Diallo, 41 bullets outside his apartment. Castillo Philando, 4 bullets in his car. Clark Stefan, 20 bullets in his grandmother's backyard. King Rodney, 11 fractures in his skull. King, King, King. K, K, K. Lynch mob. I can't breathe. I can't. Vigilantes. Verdicts. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. Emancipation, incarceration, segregation, Dred Scott, Walter Scott, Sandra Bland, changing lanes. Michael Brown, jaywalking. Ahmaud Arbery, jogging. A Tatiana Jefferson, standing in front of her bedroom window. Trayvon Martin, hoodie. Tamir Price, toy gun. Eric Garner, George Floyd, face down. Rayshard Brooks, Oscar Grant, in the back. This is the last poem in my collection. I have one more poem after this, but this is the last poem in the collection. It travels from China to Nigeria, to Romania, to Argentina, and other parts of the world. Since it is an invocation to Raven Woman, let's trace north to the poem's inspiration in the Haida Gwaii archipelago off the north coast of British Columbia. Dream Diary, Invocation. The moon's unblinking eye slices the dark. A windless night, and the aspens stand mute. In this circle of trees, I throw up my hands, rending the thick air, rising and bowing again and again. My splayed fingers claw the emptiness, pregnant with everything lost, with the bound feet of unwanted girls, the kidnapping of school girls, trafficking of child girls, torture of activist girls, beating of wife girls, the molesting of small boned girls. A low gurgling croak. She is here. I want to quiet the shrill, but there are too many predators, too many nests disturbed. I scan the trees for wings to shroud darkness, render it invisible. I can only rasp, Raven Woman, call to me with light. The darkness lurches. She tips one wing at the sky, the other at the grove. These aspens, now a radiant silver beneath the new moon. And her gurgling turns to grating. Stand tall among the upright people. The air quakes as her wings breathe the trees like lungs. In her wake, a murmuring, stir like aspen, make a rush of sound that shakes the world. I'm going to close with something special. Let me make sure I have it. Here it is. All right. As Tracy said, we had, well, what a blessing we shared in co-producing an excerpted version of In the Name of Forgotten Women last year, and sharing that with our own beautiful Jasmine Minbashian and Nimi Chadwani and Kira Kramer and Imelda Cervantes de Bernard and Carolyn Sillick. I just got off the phone with the producing artistic director at Coho Productions. Their artistic council has selected the play for a full production in Portland. It was slated for next February, March. It will not happen at that time because of the pandemic. But we are looking at options to performing it outdoors, possibly next summer. So I'll keep you posted on that. But I want to close with this poem that is, that if you saw the play here, you didn't see this performed. This is something that came later. But I'd like you to imagine 5 women, 5 diverse women, each from a different continent, chanting this poem in unison, like a Greek chorus, okay? As the woman who is North American woman, a native woman, as she is dancing, as she is pounding her drum, her hand drum, okay? And so keeping that rhythm. It's untitled, but if I were to title it, I would title it Chant. Where are the missing and murdered Indigenous women of Canada? Where are the missing and murdered Indigenous women, the Inuit? Where are the missing and murdered Indigenous women, the Métis? Where are the missing and murdered Indigenous women of Washington? Where are the missing and murdered Dakota Sioux women and girls? Where are the bodies of missing Indigenous women in Canada? Where are the bodies of missing Indigenous girls in O Canada? Where are the bodies of women and girls on the highway of tears? Where are the bodies on Canada's highway of tears? Where are the bodies, these byways of tears? Hundreds of bodies, the bodies of women and girls. Hundreds of bodies, the bodies of women and girls. Hundreds of bodies, the bodies of women and girls. Hundreds of bodies, the bodies of women and girls. Hundreds of bodies, the bodies of women and girls. Hundreds of bodies, the bodies of women and girls. Holy the bodies of women and girls. Holy the bodies of women and girls. Holy the bodies of women and girls. When will you stand for the murdered Indigenous women and girls? Hundreds of bodies, the bodies of women and girls. When will you stand for the missing Indigenous women and girls? Holy the bodies of women and girls. When will you choose to stand up for the women and girls of the world? When will you choose to stand up? Thank you.
Wow. Cindy, thank you so much. It's saying my inner, that it's unstable. I'm inviting everyone to unmute yourself. I'm having a hard time unmuting you. There's something that came to me as I was feeling your words, the power of your words, the power of your presence, the power of what you are able to somehow miraculously spin. And it reminds me, I was learning a form of healing, and there's a concept of, like, they call it the feminine force almost, where you kind of have to shock the body almost, you know, with like a boom to get that healing force to awaken and rise in the body. And that's what I feel like is your work. And it's painful, you know, it's painful to bear witness to, but it's so beautiful. So thank you. Thank you for channeling that through. And I'm going to just open up for everybody to ask questions, or if you have a comment.
Thank you, Cindy. I've enjoyed it very much. And one comment I wanted to make is the rhythm of your poetry. the rhythm of your poetry takes you in more than one dimension. It's very, very meaningful and powerful. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Tony.
Well, I wanted to say something similar,
Q&A.
especially, of course, the last piece when you mentioned the drum and the dancing, because even though I've been doing theater for the last 30 years, before that I was a dancer, and still interiorly I'm a dancer, and I was picturing the dance while you were delivering that poem. Very powerful, and having lived in Canada for so many years and knowing the issues of the missing Indigenous women, it's just shocking how many. I don't know if you've read the play by George Riga. It's old now, The Ecstasy of Rita Joe. You might want to read that. It's a Canadian play.
Yes. The
George-
Ecstasy of Rita Joe.
Ecstasy of Rita Joe by George Riga, R-Y-G-A.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I meant to say that for those who don't know, that Highway of Tears is a long stretch along Highway 16 between Prince Rupert and Prince George. And that's where many of these Indigenous women and girls have been, have disappeared and then ended up either murdered or still disappeared.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
And I want to give credit to Bill Hottel, because that poem is written in dactylic hexameter, the same meter that Homer used. And I once asked Bill, you know, why do you enjoy studying this with me so much?
Yeah.
Greek so much. And he said, because if I don't have the Odyssey in my life, I miss that thundering rhythm. And I really, you know, that stayed with me. And so, you know, these are the kinds of things that happen to you in life. You don't know when you're going to tap them again. And so when I faced this poem, I thought, that's the rhythm. That's the rhythm. Yeah.
Very powerful.
When can we expect your first poem in Greek?
Yeah.
Classical Greek.
No comment.
Yeah,
No comment.
No comments for Randy.
Yeah.
the entire Odyssey and Iliad both are written totally in the dactylic hexameter, six measures, 6 feet, and it's there's only one poem in English, one notable poem that's written in the dactylic hexameter.
Before Cindy's.
That's before Cindy's. And that was Longfellow's Evangeline.
Right.
Anyway,
I read that one.
the Iliad and the Odyssey, there's a powerful kind of a galloping rhythm that is hypnotic. And it's just, I have to say that I am literally addicted to it. If a week goes by when I can't read some Iliad or Odyssey, it's a week, it's a lost week.
There you go.
It really is addictive, and I find that I have to read the Iliad. Now we're doing the Iliad for
And
4 years.
Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 3-line rhyme, isn't that what Dante wrote in?
Well, Dante wrote, in the Terza Rima,
That's
3,
Oh, that's Rina. Okay, yeah. There-
3
We
lines.
got Homer and Dante tonight. That's good.
yeah.
Yeah,
Good. I'm in good company.
yes, yeah.
Can't complain.
So I just want to be sure, let's see, Jane, Mary, and Karen and Michael, you're all muted, and so we cannot hear you. If you wanted to say something, I'm having a hard time unmuting you. So hopefully you can drag your cursor around until you see the little microphone that says mute if you do want to add to the conversation. We'd love to hear from you.
I had another comment to make. Cindy, I wanted to talk to you. The other day I read a poem in the New Yorker by Sandra Cisneros. You know her work?
I know her work a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was wonderful. I thought of you because it was very much like a dramatic scene.
It was very much like a what?
A dramatic scene.
Oh, dramatic scene. Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, she lives in San Antonio. I'm familiar with her. Well,
What's still in my mind is the rhythm of your poetry. The rhythm of your poetry, it stays on without the language. You know what I mean? The beat of the poetry, it's marvelous. It's it repeats itself in your brain, and I'm feeling it. It's like the echo of very, very special, Cindy.
thank you, Tony.
You're very talented.
That rhythm is very much in keeping with Cindy because she was also a student of dance, right, Cindy?
You were the teacher, right?
No. She
No.
was dance, right?
Randy and I were the best dancers at Graduate Business School.
Oh, yeah. You were very, very busy. And I was very proud of having you as my students. Woo.
We were always cutting up a rug. That's right. Good dancer. She was married.
And you always enjoyed what you did.
Well, I'd love to hear any other thoughts you have, even about this moment that we're facing and the.
I was going to ask you just about that because the times are so challenging, and you're addressing the Black Lives Matter and the plight of women down through the ages around the world, but especially here in this country.
Yeah.
Does this put you in a bleak headspace? Because I know you a little bit, and you're a very happy, joyful person.
Yes, she is.
And you're dealing with dark stuff in your poetry.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I don't think it does, because my art is my activism. So I feel that I'm doing something, and so that feels, I suppose, empowering. It feels like I'm part of the conversation. It feels like, I'm not curled up in bed about it, right? And so there's some hope of change. I always feel that the arts have the best chance of changing hearts and minds, or reaching hearts and minds, and inspiring. I mean, I'm inspired by the arts. And so it's an honor. It's a privilege to be able to participate through the arts. And I mean, I'm not going to say it's easy to, obviously I do a lot of research. It's not easy to read these stories. I mean, I read the police reports of every single one of the missing and murdered Indigenous women. Every single one, I read them.
Oh.
And, the ones that are available. But I guess this is a conversation I had with my husband recently, is that I know it hurts, but it doesn't hurt a fraction. It's not, I mean, it's a fraction of the suffering that these women have suffered, right? And so if we don't have strong enough hearts to bear witness, how are we acknowledging them, their lives, their suffering? And what can we do to make sure it doesn't happen again? So that's my feeling. I feel it has to start with bearing witness.
Yes.
And in fact, I'm teaching a poetry class right now that's
Oh,
called
are you?
Speaking Out, Using Form to Embody Poems of Witness and Provocation. Because I think there are a lot of people who want to write and who want to do something.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just a really powerful time when we're together. It's a tender time. It's a vulnerable time. You know, we have to, there's poets from the Metao, from Oregon, and from California. So they don't all know each other and they're not in the same physical space, but somehow we have to, you know, create this safe space for everybody,
Yes.
right? And to be able to say, you know, I feel that sounds like appropriation to me, or, you know, and for us to be able to hear that and engage it. And it starts with conversation.
Yes.
It starts with conversation amongst ourselves.
Mhm.
So thank you for that question. I appreciate it. So,
Jane, you're lit up.
Ah, now,
Jane is lit up, no kidding. I just enjoy being in the presence of Cindy.
me too. It was very special to me because Cindy, it's not just an artist, a poet, and somebody with a lot of creativity, but she's also a wonderful professional and was one of my best students in an area completely different related to business. And she uses her sensitivity in order to address intercultural communication and intercultural, the need for intercultural communication in order for things to happen in a positive way. So Cindy is an architect of many buildings.
So Cindy, I have a question for you as on your creative side.
okay.
How do you see your strong left side engaging your strong right side? Because as not only a artist, but also a person who has had a technical and computer background,
Right.
how does that come together?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like creativity is important in every aspect of life. So if you want to talk about programming, I mean, there's not one way to write a program. So the more creative you are, you know, you can come up with these different ways of programming and hopefully make them as elegant and efficient as possible. And then if you want to talk about business and leading, I mean, one of the best courses I ever took was called Leading Creatively at the Center for Creative Leadership in Greensboro, North Carolina. And it was taught by artists. And it was all about, you know, not just leading, you know, in this sort of linear way. It's about how do you use the maximum imagination. It takes imagination to lead, really, right? To lead in a way that is collaborative. Takes a lot more effort than to lead as an autocrat.
That's right.
Right? It takes more imagination to do that. And then, you know, I'm still consulting a little bit today, and my client is dealing with the pandemic. Well, the best thing I can do is bring her my imagination to help reimagine her business, her way of doing business. I mean, all kinds of things, right? During this time. So for me, it's all about tapping into imagination. I mean, I see art as all about seeing, you know, whether you're a poet or a visual artist or a dancer, it's all about new ways of seeing, right? And you can bring that to any profession, right?
That's true.
Thanks, Bendino.
Oh, Randy is so thoughtful.
Well, I've always found you to be an extremely creative, but at the same time, methodical person.
Well organized, you
It certainly
remember
comes
that.
out in the way that you not only have structured what you've done, right, but also then in your choice of words and everything else. It's it's in some way free flowing, but also very methodical.
Yeah.
No, you have a good point about that. I mean, you do have to be very free flowing, especially at the beginning, right, of writing, because you don't want to have anything, you don't want to narrow yourself at all. But
Right.
for me, it's very iterative, and then I'm going to come in, I'm going to edit. I have to be pretty meticulous about that editing, right? And then I've got to, when I revise, then I need to be open again to re-envision. I call revision re-envisioning, right? So we want to open again. But then once I start polishing, okay, then I want to be, right? I want to have that sort of more narrow view, more meticulous, more, you know, sort of more discretion about which one works better than the other, which is it a comma or a period?
So you re-envision and then you polish it.
And that,
Is
yeah,
that it?
yeah, to some degree.
Very good.
I can definitely attest to Cindy's divine inspiration, but coming down into like a very precise form. You know, when there was just an incredible amount of precision in what she wanted to visually create, auditorily create, viscerally create through incredibly refined gestures and placement of people, you know, turning the words into these tableaus. And it does, I mean, it does create an interesting energetic, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm
And
excited
rhythm.
to see
And
your,
she has rhythm,
the
the
next-
rhythm that,
yeah, and I'm excited to see the next, you know, incarnation of what your work is going to become, with more, just more capacity to realize it like at another level. Because I felt like, I don't know, it felt like a work of art that was going into devotional.
Mhm.
Devotional.
it can, yeah.
Yes, and you had a lot to do with that, Tracy, because you
Yeah.
held the space, you created the space, you sanctified the space, and your energy when we rehearsed, I mean, your energy really balanced mine.
Uh-huh.
You
Well,
always
that's
made
good.
sure. You know? Okay, let's spin the bowl here. Let's, you know.
Oh,
So, as you know, Carol Ann, right, when you direct, there's a lot of things you need to get done. But thank God, she always brought us back, you know, to the intention, right? Let's start with the intention. Yeah, so.
oh, it was so fun.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, who haven't we heard from? Mary and Karen, do you two want to jump in here? Nope.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
I know. Yeah, no pressure, no
No pressure.
pressure. I
Okay.
guess too, one thing coming to my mind, Cindy, is, you know, obviously for you, with your big heart, feeling the pain and the suffering of the world, it's brought you to want to speak out and bring things to people's attention. And I guess, yeah, do you want to speak at all to what would be, I don't know if I can articulate this, like what would be one of the high responses to people witnessing, bearing witness to your art and turning around and doing something, you know, taking action?
I mean, yeah, that would be it. You know, whatever in each individual, right, feels moved to do, because we all have different gifts and we all participate differently. And so I don't think there's anything prescriptive, but
But there are many windows.
what's that?
There are many windows.
There are many windows. There are many
Yes.
windows. Right, right. And I think it goes back to that quote I shared with you yesterday, and probably Carol Ann is familiar with it, that Martha Graham quote that, you know, there is, each person has her own energy, her own, she uses a quickening. There's a quickening,
Yeah.
right? A life force in each of us. And if we block it, because there's only one of us in all of time, it will never manifest. The world
Yes.
will know it. And so for me, it's just all about that, doing that making sure that I do that for myself and hopefully hold a space for others to do that. Because, you know, when we're in the flow of our own energy and our own gifts,
Yes,
we are making the world a better place.
yes. At least we're making ourselves a better person, at a minimum, right?
What a beautiful time together. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Thank you for your generosity of sharing and your depth and your lightness. And blessings, everybody. So nice to see you all here. Tony, Randy,
Yes, thank you for having me.
really fun
And it's
having
good
you.
to see Cindy in this perspective, because I have seen Cindy in many different perspectives, and she is super in each one, in playing. Yes, yes.
You can tell
And,
Tony's my second mother.
No, but it's true. I'm not lying. And Randy is a witness to it. Where's Randy? Randy
Randy's
disappeared.
gone. But Michael's
But-
there. He's at the beach.
Michael.
Where are you, Michael?
He's in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh my gosh.
But
Oh,
anyway,
He's in the kitchen. Okay, my friends. Thank you.
okay.
thank you, Cindy.
Yeah,
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. It was wonderful. It was wonderful to see you, hear you, and go back in time.
Okay.
Yes. We love